Waitress is humiliated on her birthday in front of everyone. Then a millionaire stands up, and the hum of busy chatter in Winslow's diner was as familiar to Emily as the steady rhythm of her own heart. She had no grand illusions about her life, just another long shift as a waitress on a Tuesday night, under flickering neon lights and the impatient glares of hurried customers. But deep down the day was special. It was her birthday. Though she'd told no one at work, perhaps she'd hoped for a small private moment, her mother calling to offer a quiet happy birthday, or her best friend sending a text. She never imagined the night would end with humiliation and an unlikely savior. Emily Parker's day had begun like any other. She had woken up before dawn in her cramped studio apartment located on the outskirts of Westbridge, a sprawling city known for its mixture of luxury high-rises and tired, run-down neighborhoods. Her ancient alarm clock blinked. 59 a.m. Just before the chime began. Emily, always one step ahead of its ring, swung her legs over the edge of the bed and rubbed sleep from her eyes. The floor, cold against her bare feet, reminded her that her room's heater was malfunctioning yet again, a minor frustration in the grand scheme of her life. She prepared breakfast, carefully, half a grapefruit, a slice of toast, and a single cup of black coffee. Money was always tight, and what she spent on groceries had to last the week. She ate in silence, flipping through the thick stack of bills waiting on her kitchen table. Electric water phone, her meager waitress tips from Winslow's diner often barely covered them. Next to them lay a small, well-worn envelope holding a birthday card from her mother. Mom had sent it early, a tradition that began when Emily first moved out on her own. The card read, "You're capable of wonderful things. Love always." The words offered a flicker of warmth that morning. As 7:00 a.m. approached, Emily grabbed her purse and headed to the bus stop. A cold wind nipped at her cheeks, but she kept her chin up. She had work in just an hour, and though her shift wouldn't end until late evening, the diner needed someone early to set up for the breakfast rush. She didn't mind. Work was predictable, and Emily found odd comfort in routine: greet customers, pour coffee, take orders, clear plates. She'd been at Winslow's for nearly 2 years. 2 years of scuffed floors, chipped mugs, and fluorescent lights that buzzed incessantly. Standing in line for the bus, her thoughts drifted to her birthday. 24, she noted, she had a vague idea that by this age she might have gone to college, or traveled, or at least found a better job. Life, however, had thrown her enough curveballs to derail those plans. Her mother's health problems were expensive, and Emily had sent home money to help with hospital bills. Some nights after particularly grueling shifts, she'd wonder if all her small sacrifices were worth it. But she always managed to find a speck of optimism, some reason to keep going. The bus ride was short, and after a short walk, she entered Winslow's diner, the door chiming above her head. The grey-haired owner, Mr. Winslow himself, greeted her with a curt nod, too tired or too jaded to speak. The morning was the usual blur of coffee, refills, half-burnt bacon, and surly regulars. She moved through tasks on autopilot. It was only later, around noon, when the lunch crowd thinned, that she allowed herself a moment to breathe. She recalled with faint amusement that it was indeed her birthday. Perhaps she'd indulge in a slice of leftover cake if they had any that night. She didn't need presents or parties, just a small moment of sweet respite. As the clock neared 3:00 p.m., Emily received a phone call from her mother. They spoke in hurried bursts. Her mother's voice, once strong, was raspier now from her long sickness. Still, she sang an off-key version of Happy Birthday, making Emily laugh out loud. If birthdays could be boiled down to a single moment, that call was enough to make the day feel special. Little did she know this day would become memorable for a far different reason, a reason that would shake the foundations of her life and expose the hidden kindness of a complete stranger. The hush of mid-afternoon transitioned gradually into the chaotic hum of dinner. By 6 p.m., as the neon sign outside flickered, open in bright red letters, families started pouring in, looking for burgers, fries, and a break from their kitchens. Emily felt a surge of energy. She enjoyed these busy hours. There was something satisfying about seeing families sharing laughs over milkshakes, couples leaning in over candlelit corners, and friends reuniting after days apart. Beneath the chaos, a sense of life coursed through the diner, a tapestry of stories woven into the checkered floors and battered booths. Emily took orders swiftly, smiling politely, even as her feet ached from standing. It was part of the job. She rarely allowed her personal struggles to cast a shadow over her service. She listened attentively, made recommendations, and handled unexpected requests with grace. Sometimes the customers were friendly, leaving generous tips and kind words. Sometimes they were rushed or rude, and she just had to brush it off. The early dinner crowd thinned out around 7:30 p.m., and the second wave began around 8. By that time, Emily and her co-worker Nate, a college student juggling an evening shift to cover tuition, were the only waitstaff on duty. Mr. Winslow had long since retreated to his office, and the kitchen staff was reduced to a skeleton crew of 2. It was a quiet Tuesday typical for that time of year. The city's main sports team wasn't playing, and the cooler temperatures seemed to keep people home. Emily had let her mind wander again, thinking about the bus she'd have to catch after her shift, the leftover soup waiting in her fridge for a late dinner, and how she'd treat herself with that slice of diner cake if it hadn't sold out. It was exactly at 8:15 p.m. when the door chimed, signaling the arrival of the group that would set everything in motion. Emily glanced up and saw 3 people striding in a tall man wearing a crisp business suit, a middle-aged woman in a sharp red blazer, and a younger man lugging a camera bag. Immediately she sensed something unusual. They carried themselves with an air of self-importance, as if the diner was merely a pit stop on their grander journey. She noticed the younger man fussing with a small camera, and the older man, the apparent leader, spoke loudly, commanding attention without apology. Emily stepped forward. "Welcome to Winslow's Diner," she said, smiling politely, menus in hand. "Table for 3, the man nodded, but did not return the smile. He scanned the booths and pointed to the largest one near the center of the diner. The group marched over, taking seats. "Service quick here?" he asked tersely. "I'll do my best," Emily replied, keeping her tone friendly, though she was unsettled by his brusque manner. She placed the menus before them and waited for their next move. The woman fiddling with a smartphone barely looked up. "We have somewhere to be," she said. "So yes, be quick." The younger man adjusted the lens on his camera and seemed indifferent to the entire exchange. Emily wondered if they were journalists, or perhaps some business group on a tight schedule. In any case, she prepared herself for a demanding table. A flicker of anxiety rose in her stomach. She wanted to ensure everything went smoothly. Maybe they'd leave a good tip if she handled their needs well. This was her first mistake, believing that courtesy and diligence would shield her from whatever was about to unfold. Emily took their drink orders, coffee for the older man, water for the woman, and a soda for the younger man. As she turned toward the counter to place their drink requests, she overheard them murmuring in hushed tones. She caught snippets. "The schedule is tight, only have an hour, need to get the video done," and so forth. Her curiosity piqued. She reasoned that perhaps they were filming some promotional piece or a news segment, but she didn't dwell on it. It wasn't her place to pry into customers' business. When she returned with their drinks, she found the group practically ignoring her, continuing to discuss their plans. The older man, who introduced himself curtly as Mr. Barnes, looked at the menu only after Emily gently coughed to capture his attention. He sighed as if reading the laminated pages was an enormous burden. "I'll have the steak medium rare." "Don't overcook it," he snapped. The woman, Ms. Reed, asked for a chef's salad, light dressing, with a dismissive wave of her hand. The younger man, no name given, settled for a cheeseburger and fries. Emily jotted down the order, swiftly repeating it to ensure no mistakes. Mr. Barnes exhaled loudly, as if even having to confirm his own meal was a time-consuming inconvenience. She walked their ticket back to the kitchen, passing it to the short-order cook, Manny, who raised an eyebrow upon seeing the steak request. "They sure about a steak from this place?" "At this hour?" Manny asked cynically. "Our steaks, nothing fancy. Let's hope they aren't expecting five-star cuisine." Emily just shrugged. "They're in a hurry. Do your best." With that, she returned to refill coffee cups for the few regulars huddled in the corner. She couldn't help but notice the odd tension emanating from the new group's booth. They spoke in urgent whispers, gesturing occasionally toward the camera bag. Something about them set her on edge, yet she brushed off the unease, focusing on other tables, cleaning up used plates, smiling at passers-by. She resolved to treat them as any other customers. When Manny rang the bell, signaling the food was ready, Emily balanced the tray, gracefully approached their booth, and placed each plate with a polite enjoy. She lingered, checking if they needed anything else. Mr. Barnes studied the steak with disapproval, cutting a small piece and scowling Musillis. Reed sniffed at her salad as if suspecting it might be tainted. The younger man had already taken a bite of his cheeseburger and seemed at least marginally satisfied. "Is there anything else I can get you?" Emily asked, mustering a cheerful tone. Mr. Barnes looked at her name tag as though noticing it for the first time. "Emily," he said, pronouncing each syllable slowly. "I'll let you know if there's a problem." He turned back to the steak without a word of thanks. Emily nodded and slipped away. Determined not to let it ruin her night, she attempted to stifle her rising frustration. Rude customers were part of the job, she reminded herself. But there was a certain edge to Mr. Barnes that made her uncomfortable, a sense that he had come here to do more than just eat. About half an hour passed. Emily busied herself with clearing tables and handling the few regulars. The group of three continued their conversation in low, urgent tones. Occasionally, Emily caught Mr. Barnes glancing at her, his gaze flicking away whenever she made eye contact. Eventually, Miss Reed snapped her fingers in the air to catch Emily's attention. The motion alone set Emily's nerves on edge. She found it humiliating, yet she approached with a smile. "Yes, how can I help? I need more water," Miss Reed said. Then, noticing her glass was barely half empty, she corrected herself with a condescending huff. "On second thought, bring me a fresh lemon wedge, too." "Of course," Emily replied, forcing a polite nod. She returned quickly with a pitcher of water and lemon. As she placed the wedge on a small plate, Miss Reed made no gesture of thanks. Her eyes fixed on her phone as she typed. Frantically, Emily's patience was wearing thin. She tried reminding herself that people had bad days, that maybe they were under pressure from a work deadline, that it had nothing to do with her. Still, the consistent rudeness was draining, and in the back of her mind, she couldn't stop acknowledging that this was her birthday. She was supposed to feel a little spark of joy, a small ounce of celebration. Instead, she was enduring the worst table she'd had in weeks. Finally, she cleared her throat as she spoke to Mills Reed. "Let me know if you need anything else." Then, turning to Mr. Barnes, "How's your steak, sir?" "Everything prepared to your liking." His only response was a grunt. Then his cell phone rang, and he held up a finger toward Emily as if to say, "Not now." She felt a flash of anger bristle in her chest, but she kept quiet. She pivoted away to serve another table, an older couple who gave her sympathetic looks, as though they had overheard the rude interactions. It crossed Emily's mind that it might be nice to have a manager step in, but Mr. Winslow typically stayed out of these minor conflicts. "Customer service is your job," he would say. "It's why you get tips." She exhaled slowly, accepting that she was on her own. Amid the tension, Nate approached, balancing a tray of dirty dishes. "You okay?" he whispered. "They look like a handful." "I'm fine," she replied under her breath, though relief washed over her, that at least someone noticed. "Just got to get through this shift." At that moment, Manny poked his head out from the kitchen, waving Emily over. "Hey," he said quietly. "I found an extra slice of chocolate cake from earlier. Thought you might want it. Heard it's your birthday." Emily's cheeks warmed at the unexpected kindness. Manny wasn't the friendliest cook around. He mostly kept to himself, but this simple gesture moved her. She decided she'd save the cake for the end of the shift. A tiny sweet reward for surviving the day, Emily set the plate aside in the back. She even put a small candle in it, though she had no intention of lighting it in front of the customers. It was just something for herself, a private acknowledgement that her birthday mattered, even in a small way. Not long after the dreaded moment arrived, the group finished their meals, the plates pushed aside with half-eaten portions still on them. Mr. Barnes pulled out his wallet, extracted a corporate credit card, and flicked it onto the table's surface, motioning for Emily. When she approached, he leaned back, crossing his arms. "We're in a hurry," he said. "Run it quickly." "Yes, sir." Emily took the card, scurrying to the register at the diner's front. She processed the payment, printed the receipt, and returned to the table. "Here's your copy, sir," she said, offering a pen. "Thank you for visiting Winslow's Diner." She could practically taste the hostility in the air. Mr. Barnes stared at the receipt, as though furious he had to sign Ms. Reed drummed her fingernails on the tabletop. The younger man was disassembling his camera gear, packing it away. Then, in a sudden flurry, Mr. Barnes scowled and said, "Wait, the camera!" He gestured for the younger man to keep it out. Emily blinked, confused. "Is something the matter?" She ventured gently. Mr. Barnes fixed his cold gaze on her. "Yes, actually, we came here for a reason. We represent a major investor who's looking into local businesses. This diner was on a short list of potential recipients for a promotional feature." He paused his words, weighted with self-importance. "But after tonight, I see that it's not going to work out." Emily's heart fluttered with confusion. A promotional feature for the diner. She had never heard of such a thing. I'm sorry if he cut her off. We planned to highlight how small businesses treat customers with unwavering courtesy, but the service tonight was subpar at best. Behind her, Emily sensed the hush that fell over the diner. She felt eyes turning toward them. The older couple had stopped sipping their coffee, and two of the late-night regulars, both men in their 40s, were staring from the bar. Even Manny peeked out from behind the kitchen door, brow furrowed, subpar. Emily echoed her voice, trembling. "I apologize if I misread," spoke up, her tone. "Frosty, you were inattentive. We had to ask for refills. You didn't check on us nearly enough. That's not the level of service we expect from a place we'd recommend to our investors." Emily felt heat rise to her cheeks. She couldn't recall a time she'd neglected them. Yet here, they were accusing her of not doing her job. Her mind raced to remember each moment of the night. Yes, she'd been a bit flustered, but certainly not negligent. She had refilled Miss Reed's water the moment she asked. She had checked on Mr. Barnes at least twice, but he had brushed her off. She tried to offer an explanation, but her voice caught in her throat. Mr. Barnes took the receipt, scribbled something, then shoved it back at her. "You see." He pointed to the tip line. "0. That's what you get for your poor service." The words felt like knives. Emily looked at the blank line, the humiliating slash drawn through it. She'd been stiffed on tips before, but never in such a public, humiliating way. Finally, the younger man raised the camera, aiming it directly at her, the lens zooming in. Emily's heart pounded. "We're going to do a quick exit interview for our record," Miss Reed said, though her tone dripped condescension. "Explain yourself. Why should any investor support a place that employs incompetent staff?" Emily's eyes darted around, searching for help. Nate was behind the counter, looking stunned. The older couple at the booth looked on, horrified. The hush in the diner became all-consuming. Emily wanted to run to hide. Yet she felt trapped. This was her job, her livelihood. A wave of anger and shame washed over her. She opened her mouth, searching for words that wouldn't come. "Go on," Mr. Barnes prodded, leaning forward, a cruel smirk forming at the corner of his mouth. "Tell the camera why we should waste our money here." Her eyes stung. She fought tears. The camera's red light blinked, capturing every second of her humiliation. She tried to muster a defense, but stammered, I always do my best." Miss Reed sighed dramatically. Clearly that's not enough. Emily wished she could vanish into the floor. Every fiber of her being vibrated with shame. It was one thing to be stiffed on a tip, but another to be publicly ridiculed, recorded and put on the spot in front of the entire diner. Her birthday felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the sting of humiliation. Suddenly, a voice cut through the tension. "That's enough." Emily turned to see an unfamiliar man stand up from a booth in the back corner. He looked to be in his mid-50s, with salt and pepper hair and a tailored sports jacket. Emily had barely noticed him earlier. He'd come in quietly, asked for a simple meal, and seemed content to dine alone. Now he strode forward, stepping between Emily and the group of tormentors. His voice was calm but resolute. "I think we've all seen enough," he repeated, fixing a steely gaze on Mr. Barnes. Mr. Barnes bristled, turning his displeasure on the newcomer. "Excuse me," he said. "We're in the middle of a business matter. A business matter that involves bullying a waitress," the man replied. He turned to the younger man holding the camera. "Put that down. You're not going to humiliate her any further." The younger man glanced uneasily at Mr. Barnes, who nodded curtly, giving a silent order to stop filming. He set the camera on the table. Emily felt a rush of gratitude, as though she could finally breathe. She also felt confusion. This stranger was defending her so assertively, as if he had some personal stake in what was happening. She tried to form a quiet thank you on her lips, but the words remained unspoken, overshadowed by the confrontation unfolding in front of her. Mr. Barnes lifted his chin. "I don't see why this concerns you. We're dealing with a service issue." The stranger gave a thin smile. "You made it everyone's concern when you started publicly berating a hard-working waitress." He extended his hand in Emily's direction. "I've been sitting here for the last hour, and I can vouch. She provided excellent service. If anything, you three have been rude and condescending from the moment you walked in." Ms. Reed scoffed, crossing her arms. "Do you have any idea who we are?" "I know exactly who you are," the stranger said. "Grifters, so-called corporate consultants, traveling from one small business to another, filming staged humiliations to post online or pitch to gullible investors. I've seen your type before." His words sent a collective gasp through the diner. Emily blinked. She hadn't considered that possibility. Could they really be running a scam using intimidation and recordings to manipulate businesses? Mr. Barnes's eyes flickered a telltale sign that the stranger's accusation had struck a nerve. He tried to recover, turning the argument around. You have no proof of that. We were invited here. Then show us the stranger, cut in calmly. Show any official documents. Let's see a letter from the investor. An endorsement. Anything. He gestured to the camera. Why else would you be filming? The younger man looked down, refusing to meet anyone's gaze. Ms. Reed glanced at Mr. Barnes, who clenched his jaw, the tension clear. The stranger continued. I also wonder if your so-called investor knows you're publicly humiliating staff in the name of promotional features. He paused, letting the implication hang, because if so, I'd love to call them and share this footage with their legal department. A hush fell over the diner. The bystanders watched, rapt, waiting to see how the group would respond. Emily felt a surge of hope and a flush of renewed embarrassment that all of this was about her. Yet she also felt an undeniable gratitude that this man had intervened. Mr. Barnes finally found his voice, though it trembled with rage. You don't know who you're dealing with. We have power, do you? The stranger interjected calmly. Because I also have a bit of influence. My name's William Holt. He paused, letting that name settle as though it carried weight. I'm the founder and CEO of Holt & Co. Investments. The name triggered a wave of recognition for many of the diner's patrons. Holt & Co. Investments was a renowned firm in the city, one that had funded numerous philanthropic endeavors, built affordable housing, and sponsored community programs. Emily had heard of them, in passing on local news segments. They were lauded for their charitable contributions, but rarely did she imagine she'd ever meet the man behind the name. The color drained from Ms. Reed's face. Mr. Barnes faltered, opening and closing his mouth soundlessly. Only the younger man, who seemed out of his depth, looked oblivious to who William Holt might be. Holt continued, You want to talk about real investors? I've poured millions into local businesses with real promise and integrity. Now I'm curious, which investor hired you? Maybe we know each other. He arched an eyebrow. The group remained silent. With a dismissive wave, Holt sighed. I thought so. Emily could scarcely believe what she was hearing. William Holt, the William Holt. Yet here he was, standing a few feet away, defending her as if she were an old friend. She felt both overwhelmed by gratitude and stunned by the surreal nature of the situation. She took a small step back, not wanting to attract further attention, but Holt placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, a kind, gentle gesture that brought tears to her eyes. She swallowed hard, summoning her composure. Mr. Barnes finally broke the silence. We were just finishing our meal. We'll be leaving now. He glared at Emily one last time, then at Holt, his lips tightening. Miss Reed quickly gathered her phone, snatched a few papers from the table, and stood up, avoiding eye contact with anyone. The younger man followed suit, camera bag clutched under his arm. They moved toward the diner's entrance, Mr. Barnes muttering insults under his breath. Nate from behind the counter watched them go, his shoulders visibly tensed in anger. As they reached the door, Miss Reed turned around, face contorted with bitterness. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but one pointed look from Holt stopped her cold. In the next instant, she was gone. The glass door slamming shut behind them, leaving a jangling echo of the overhead bell. A moment passed in silence before Manny burst through the kitchen door. What the heck was all that about? He demanded, brandishing a spatula. William Holt turned to Manny, offering a warm smile. Just some folks trying to take advantage of a hard-working waitress, he said. We sorted it out. And then, as if remembering where he was, Holt turned to Emily. Are you all right? Emily nodded, though tears threatened to spill. Thank you. She managed her voice, trembling. I didn't know what to do. They were filming. She paused, swallowing the wave of emotion. I don't know what they were planning. He gave her shoulder a gentle squeeze. Unfortunately, there are people who make a living by producing content designed to humiliate others, or by faking exposés for quick profit. I've come across them before. He paused, eyes scanning the nearly empty diner. I recognized Mr. Barnes from a previous incident in another city when I saw how he treated you. I couldn't stay silent. Emily felt a fresh rush of relief and astonishment. I can't ever thank you enough, she whispered. He simply waved the sentiment aside. No thanks necessary. I just believe in standing up for what's right. He then turned to Manny. I'd like the check, please, for my meal. And if it's all right, I'd also like to cover the bills for any customers in here tonight. Consider it my small contribution to clearing the air. Manny blinked, taken aback, then grinned. Sure thing, but there's only a couple of us left. He gestured to the older couple who looked equally stunned. You sure? Holt nodded. Absolutely. Immediately the older couple at the far booth stood up to approach him. The wife spoke up. That's very kind of you, sir. You didn't have to. Holt shook his head. It's my pleasure. I'm just grateful that we can salvage what's left of this night. He paid for everything in cash, leaving Manny a generous tip. Then turning to Emily, he said, I'd like to speak with you a moment, if that's all right. Emily nodded, her heart still pounding from the adrenaline of the confrontation. She quickly checked that the other customers were fine, and Nate offered to handle any final tasks so she could talk. She and William Holt moved to a quieter corner of the diner. They sat opposite each other in a booth. Holt leaned forward, his expression earnest. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. You shouldn't have to endure such treatment just because you work in the service industry. Emily flushed with embarrassment, recalling the mortifying footage of her stammering. I appreciate your help, she replied softly. I'm just not used to anyone stepping in like that. Normally, if a customer's rude, the best I can do is grin and bear it. She felt tears threaten again, but blinked them away. Holt drummed his fingers on the table. Yes, well, if I had been a little more assertive, sooner, maybe they wouldn't have gotten as far as they did. But better late than never, I suppose. He offered her a kind smile. How long have you worked here? 2 years, Emily said. I need the job to pay my bills. I'm not ungrateful. Mr. Winslow gave me a chance when I really needed it, and I appreciate that. But nights like this can be tough. Holt nodded, as though understanding more than she said outright. And how long do you plan on staying here? The question gave Emily pause. She had no immediate answer. I'm not really sure, she admitted. I was hoping to save up for something else, maybe college courses. But right now, life keeps getting in the way. Holt leaned back, his gaze thoughtful. You strike me as someone who has more potential than you realize. He hesitated, as if weighing his next words. I rarely do this, Emily, but I'd like to invite you to my office sometime this week. I'd like to learn more about your goals, what you want out of life. Maybe we can find a way to help you get there. Emily's heart skipped a beat. That sounds incredible. But what would I even say? He chuckled warmly. Don't worry about that. Just come be yourself. If there's a position or a path that fits your skills and ambitions, I'd be happy to facilitate, that I'm always on the lookout for hard-working, principled people." She was speechless, her eyes widening in disbelief. This man, one of the most respected investors in the city, was offering her an opportunity she had never dreamed of. A swirl of emotions hit her. Gratitude, excitement, nerves, and a flicker of hope that maybe her life could change. "Thank you," she whispered, voice trembling. I would love to come in. Honestly, it would be a dream just to explore options." "It's settled then," Holt said. Smiling, he pulled out a sleek business card from his jacket's inner pocket and handed it to her. "Give my office a call. Let my assistant Sandra know that I asked you to come in personally. We'll schedule something that works for you." Emily took the card like it was a precious artifact. The embossed lettering spelled out, "William Holt, CEO Holt & Co. Investments." It still felt unreal. "I will," she said, gazing at the card, then at him. "I promise," he nodded, standing. "All right, I'll let you finish your shift." "It was nice to meet you, Emily." He took a step, then paused. "By the way, Manny mentioned, it was your birthday." She blushed, bobbing her head. "Yes, but I didn't really tell anyone. Just a normal day." His eyebrows lifted. "Well, happy birthday, and hopefully next year you'll spend it under better circumstances." She managed a small laugh. "Thank you, Mr. Holt. Call me William," he said, gently then. With a final smile, he turned and walked out into the night. For a moment, Emily remained there, unable to move. The adrenaline still coursed through her, but a strange sense of calm settled in. She reread the business card in her hand, the gold edges glinting under the fluorescent lights. Nate walked over, eyes shining with excitement. "That was insane," he exclaimed softly. "William Holt. Do you know how big a deal he is? He's like the city's biggest philanthropist and investor. You basically just had a conversation with the mayor of money." Emily laughed, a breathless sound. "Don't get me started. I'm still trying to process it." She looked around, noticing the older couple preparing to leave. They waved at her with kind smiles. She realized the diner was otherwise empty, except for Manny in the kitchen. It was nearly closing time. Grateful for a lull, Emily excused herself to the back where Manny had placed the slice of chocolate cake. She lit the candle just because she felt the moment deserved it now. Even if no one else was watching, she watched the small flame flicker, feeling gratitude for Manny's kindness, for the couple's concern for Nate's supportive presence, and for William Holt's unexpected generosity. The events of the evening felt surreal, yet the solid weight of the business card in her pocket anchored her to reality. She took a bite of the cake, letting the rich chocolate melt on her tongue. For the first time that day, a genuine smile graced her lips. Although humiliation had cast a dark shadow over her birthday, a spark of hope now lit the path ahead. She reminded herself that not all days were like this, and this one, for all its shameful drama, had ended in an unbelievable opportunity. Nate and Manny joined her, teasing her about her makeshift birthday celebration. Manny offered a gruff happy birthday, looking slightly uncomfortable with the sentiment. Nate joined in with a silly dance, singing an off-key version of Happy Birthday. Emily giggled. She felt safe, surrounded by these two rough-edged but good-hearted co-workers in the tired diner she knew so well. The day had taught her something. Kindness and cruelty existed side by side in the world, and you never knew which might show up at your table next. But even when confronted by cruelty, there could be someone willing to defend you, someone who refused to stand by, and sometimes that someone could change your life. The rest of the week felt like a blur to Emily. Word spread quickly about the incident at Winslow's. A few regular customers mentioned they'd heard about a confrontation, though details were murky. Mr. Winslow was uncharacteristically tight-lipped when he heard rumors that someone with real influence had stepped in to protect Emily. He pulled her aside one morning, inquiring politely, "Everything okay with you, kid?" "Here you had quite a night." She assured him she was fine, that the troublemakers had left, and that everything was back to normal. She didn't mention Holt's invitation. She wasn't sure how Mr. Winslow would react, and she felt it was best to keep it private until she knew more. After all, there was a chance nothing would come of Holt's offer. People with power made promises they never kept all the time. Still, she clung to the business card, reading and rereading Holt's name like a mantra of possibility. On Thursday evening, she mustered the courage to call Holt's office. Her hand shook as she dialed the number. A pleasant voice answered, introducing herself as Sandra, Mr. Holt's executive assistant. Emily stumbled through an introduction. Hello. My name is Emily Parker. Mr. Holt asked me to call. Regarding a meeting, Sandra immediately brightened. "Ah, yes. Miss Parker, he told me to expect your call. We have an opening next Tuesday at 10:00 a.m., if that works for you." Emily blinked in disbelief. So soon, she had expected to wait weeks for a small time slot. "Yes, that works perfectly," she managed. "Wonderful," Sandra said, offering directions to the Holt & Co. building. "Bring a resume if you have one, or just yourself, if you don't. Mr. Holt wants to talk about your aspirations. We'll see you then." Emily hung up, her heart fluttering. She felt a surge of excitement and nerves, a combination that left her breathless. The next few days crawled by. She tried to remain focused on her shifts, but her mind inevitably wandered to the upcoming meeting. If she had the chance to leave waitressing behind, to find a career or path that allowed her to pursue her dreams, what would it look like? She had never dared imagine her mother's illness weighed on her mind, too. The bills were still piling up. Even if Holt offered her a position, she wasn't sure how it would align with her responsibilities at home. She pushed the doubts aside, telling herself to at least explore the opportunity. Rarely did life present such a clear, open door. Tuesday arrived bright and clear. Emily woke early, anxiety knotting her stomach. She chose her best outfit, a conservative blouse and a pencil skirt. She'd saved for special occasions. She quietly thanked her past self for buying it on sale months ago. She styled her hair neatly, applying minimal makeup, just enough to appear professional. She took the bus to downtown Westbridge, the city's skyline glittering in the morning sun. Holt & Co.'s headquarters was an imposing high-rise of steel and glass, making her feel tiny as she approached. The lobby was all marble floors and tasteful art, an atmosphere of quiet sophistication. Emily tried not to stare, reminding herself to act composed. At the reception desk, she introduced herself. The receptionist offered a polished smile. "Miss Parker, welcome. Mr. Holt is expecting you. You can head to the 42nd floor. Sandra will meet you there." Exiting the elevator on the 42nd floor, Emily's pulse quickened. She stepped into a reception area that boasted floor-to-ceiling windows with panoramic views of the city. Modern furniture and fresh flowers gave the space a welcoming vibe. Sandra, a poised woman in her early 40s, greeted Emily warmly. Her handshake was gentle but firm. "So nice to finally meet you in person," Sandra said. "We've prepared a small conference room. Mr. Holt will be with you shortly." She guided Emily into a room lined with sleek chairs around a long table, a pitcher of water and a glass waiting at each seat. Emily took a moment to breathe, glancing at the city skyline. It felt surreal to be here after last week's humiliating fiasco. Who would have thought that such a low moment could lead her to the top floor of a prestigious investment firm minutes later? William Holt walked in, exuding the same calm confidence Emily had seen in the diner. He smiled widely, extending a hand. "Emily, thank you for coming. It's good to see you under better circumstances." They exchanged pleasantries before settling into chairs at the table. Holt leaned forward, all attention on her. "I'd like to hear your story, if you don't mind. Whatever you're comfortable sharing, what do you hope to do with your life? What are your interests, skills, dreams?" It was a broad question, one that Emily had never been asked so directly. She took a deep breath, deciding to be honest. She shared her background, growing up in a modest home, her mother's health troubles, taking a waitressing job to help pay bills. She admitted she had never had the chance to explore college or vocational training, though she'd always been interested in business and public relations skills she'd observed in the day-to-day dance of the diner, but never studied formally. Holt listened intently, nodding. "I respect your dedication to family," he said, "and your willingness to sacrifice personal ambitions for the greater good." Emily's heart clenched. It felt good to be seen, to be validated for her struggles. She found herself telling him about the little things, how she had taught herself basic bookkeeping to help Manny track diner expenses more efficiently, how she juggled scheduling, how she tried to mediate conflicts between the staff. She realized in that moment she had more experience than she often gave herself credit for. It was just non-traditional. After hearing her out, Holt folded his hands. "It's clear you have an aptitude for organization, people skills, and a strong moral compass. We could use someone like you in our philanthropic outreach department. It's an entry-level position, but you'd gain exposure to event planning, donor communications, and community outreach. Our philanthropic arm often coordinates with local non-profits." Emily stared, hardly believing her ears. A real job offer. Not waitressing. Not an unpaid internship. An actual position with the potential to grow. She felt her eyes misting, but she blinked rapidly, not wanting to cry in front of him. "Holt, this is amazing. I don't know what to say," she managed. He grinned. "Say yes. If it appeals to you, we'd start you on a probationary period, 3 months, to ensure it's the right fit for both parties. There will be training, of course, and we can discuss a flexible schedule if you need to care for your mother." Emily nearly jumped out of her chair to hug him, but she restrained herself, offering a beaming smile instead. "Yes. Absolutely yes. I promise I won't let you down." Holt waved off her worry. "I'm confident you'll do well. Now, if at the end of the probation you decide it's not for you, no hard feelings. But my instincts say you'll flourish. Sandra will help you with paperwork, and we can discuss salary and benefits. It won't be a fortune at first, but it'll be fair, and there's room for growth." At the mention of salary and benefits, Emily felt relief flood her. She thought about how it could help her mother, how it might free her from the daily grind of living paycheck to paycheck. She also felt something else she hadn't felt in a long time: possibility, a sense of a future she could shape. Holt excused himself after a few more details, leaving Emily and Sandra to work through the official paperwork. As they filled out forms, Emily realized how little she had prepared for this moment, but Sandra guided her step by step with a patient smile. By the time Emily left the Holt & Co. building, the crisp afternoon air felt invigorating. She strolled toward the bus stop paperwork, clutched in a neat folder, her mind buzzing with excitement. She needed to speak with Mr. Winslow to let him know she'd be leaving. He'd probably be disappointed to lose a reliable waitress, but she hoped he'd understand that this was a life-changing opportunity. That evening after her shift ended, she found Mr. Winslow hunched over the ledgers in his cramped office. She knocked gently, stepping in. "Mr. Winslow, can we talk for a second?" He glanced up, removing his reading glasses. "Sure, Emily. What's on your mind?" She swallowed. The man might be abrupt and a bit gruff, but he'd given her a stable job when she'd had nowhere else to go. She tried to project gratitude and determination. "I've been offered another position. In an office, it's something more in line with my long-term goals. I'm going to accept it." Mr. Winslow listened, lips pursing slightly. After a moment's pause, he nodded gruffly. "Well, good for you, kid. I can't say I'm surprised. You always seemed like you were meant for more than slinging hash." He exhaled a hint of a smile on his worn face. "When do you start?" She explained the timeline, how she could give him a 2-week notice. He rubbed his jaw. "Normally I'd say yes, but we're slow this month and I can juggle staff around. If you want to leave sooner, do it. No sense keeping you here if you can move on to better things." Emily's eyes widened. "Are you sure I don't want to leave you short-staffed?" He shrugged. "I'll manage. You do what you need to do. Though if you ever decide to come back, there's a place for you. Good workers are hard to find." She felt tears prick her eyes. For all his faults, Mr. Winslow had a heart. She thanked him sincerely, promising to stop by and say hello from time to time. Before she left his office, he reached into a drawer and produced a small envelope, handing it to her. She opened it cautiously to find a crisp $50 bill. She stared at it, confused. "Happy belated birthday, kid," he muttered. "Don't go telling everyone I don't do birthday gifts. But you've always worked hard, and I appreciate that. Consider it a small token of thanks." Overcome with emotion, Emily thanked him profusely. The next day, she officially ended her time at Winslow's diner, hugging Manny and Nate, promising to stay in touch. As she walked out the door for the last time, a swirl of memories washed over her. She'd grown up in that diner, in a way weathered the harsh realities of life, and discovered the resilience of her own spirit. Now it was time to move on. On her first day at Holt & Co., Emily arrived early, brimming with nervous excitement. The philanthropic outreach department buzzed with activity staff members, hurrying between cubicles, scheduling events, making phone calls. Sandra introduced Emily to the team, a diverse group of professionals who seemed genuine and welcoming. They offered her a small cubicle, near a window, a desk and a company laptop. It felt surreal to have her own workspace. Her first assignment was to assist in organizing a fundraising gala. Emily discovered that many of the skills she'd honed as a waitress, time management, multitasking, dealing with demanding personalities, translated well to event planning. She thrived on the structured chaos, learning about budgets, vendor contracts, and promotional campaigns. She felt a spark of pride, realizing that she was quickly picking up the language and rhythms of office life. Occasionally she crossed paths with Holt in the hallways. He always offered a friendly greeting, sometimes, stopping to ask how she was settling in. Each time she thanked him again for the opportunity, but he brushed it off humbly. Talent deserves a chance to shine. He'd say, "I just opened the door." The pay wasn't astronomical, but it was steady and came with health insurance, a godsend for Emily's worries about her mother's medical bills. She found a sense of security creeping into her life, a sense of possibility. Soon she could help her mother afford better care, maybe even pay off some debts. The relief was immeasurable. Weeks turned into months. Emily's probationary period came and went, culminating in an official offer, a permanent position on the team. By that point, she'd already begun forging friendships with her co-workers who admired her work ethic and positive attitude. The transition from a hectic diner to a high-rise office had not been entirely smooth. She still wrestled with imposter syndrome, the fear that she didn't truly belong in this sophisticated environment. Yet each project she successfully completed chipped away at her doubts. She occasionally reflected on the night that changed her fate. The memory of Mr. Barnes and Ms. Reed's cruelty still stung, but it was overshadowed by Holt's kindness and the door it opened. Sometimes adversity had a way of steering life in an unexpected direction, unveiling a path that otherwise remained hidden. Had she never been humiliated, had Holt never witnessed the injustice firsthand, she might still be waiting tables at Winslow's. Nearly a year to the day of her humiliating birthday, Emily found herself at the annual Holt & Co. Charity Gala, a glittering event hosted at a luxurious downtown hotel. In her new role, she had spent months helping plan every detail. The ballroom shimmered with chandeliers, and guests dressed in formal attire mingled among tables adorned with fine linens and centerpieces of white roses. This was Holt & Co.'s biggest fundraising event of the year, drawing local politicians, celebrities, and some of the city's most influential business leaders. Emily, now with the title Associate Coordinator of Philanthropic Events, hurried around the venue, ensuring everything ran smoothly. She guided the catering staff, double-checked the seating arrangement, and provided last-minute instructions to volunteers. Her walkie-talkie buzzed with updates from the stage crew handling the evening's entertainment. Before guests started arriving in earnest, she slipped away to the dressing room to change into her gala attire, a simple yet elegant navy blue gown. She caught her reflection in the mirror, momentarily astonished. She looked poised, confident, a far cry from the anxious waitress. In a stained uniform, a surge of pride fluttered in her chest, tinged with gratitude for the journey that brought her here. The event commenced smoothly. Speeches were delivered, live music played, and donations poured in for the evening's cause, a scholarship fund for underprivileged youth. Emily could barely contain her excitement each time someone announced a large pledge. William Holt, dashing in a tuxedo, presided over the night with his signature grace. As the clock approached 10, he took the stage microphone in hand. The crowd fell silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "tonight we've gathered to support our community's brightest prospects, those who need a helping hand to reach their full potential. I'm proud to announce that we've already raised over $500,000 this evening." Enthusiastic applause erupted. Emily stood at the edge of the ballroom near the backstage curtain, a satisfied smile on her face. Months of hard work had paid off. Then Holt continued. "As we celebrate success stories tonight, I'd like to share one that's particularly close to my heart. Someone who exemplifies how a helping hand can change the course of a life." Emily froze, her heart pounding. Could he be referring to Holt? Looked directly toward her, beckoning her with a gentle wave. She felt her cheeks warm, but she mustered the courage to step onto the stage. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she stood next to him, facing hundreds of onlookers. "Some of you may know Emily Parker," Holt said, resting a hand on her shoulder. "She's one of our brightest additions to the philanthropic outreach team. But you may not know that a year ago she was working as a waitress, struggling to support her ailing mother and keep a roof over her head. By pure chance, I crossed paths with her one night. I witnessed her grace under pressure, her work ethic and her kindness, qualities I believe are indispensable. That encounter led me to offer her a position here. Since then, she's become an invaluable member of our organization." A wave of applause rose from the crowd. Emily felt tears prick her eyes. In the audience, she recognized some of her co-workers giving her supportive smiles, cameras flashing to capture the moment. Holt continued, Emily's story isn't just about luck. It's about resilience, seizing opportunity, and the power of giving someone a chance. Tonight, we honor many such stories of perseverance. If there's one message to take away from this gala, it's that we can all be that helping hand, whether it's through donations, mentorship, or simply standing up for someone who's been wronged. Your actions matter, Emily. I'm proud of you. He handed her the microphone. The room fell silent, expectant. Emily's hands trembled slightly, but she took a breath, gazing out at the sea of well-dressed guests. She thought back to that humiliating night, how she'd felt worthless under Mr. Barnes's cruelty. The flash of the camera capturing her shame, and then Holt's intervention. She remembered the lump in her throat as she tried to defend herself, the relief that washed over her when Holt stepped in. Now here she was on stage in front of hundreds being recognized for her accomplishments. She swallowed hard and began to speak. "Thank you, Mr. Holt. William," she said, her voice wavering slightly. "Thank you all for your generosity tonight. A year ago, I never imagined I'd be standing on this stage. The truth is, we never know where help might come from. My life changed because someone refused to let me be humiliated, and instead offered me a chance. I encourage everyone here to look for opportunities to do the same for others. It might not always be about money. It can be about respect, kindness, and believing in someone who doesn't yet believe in themselves. That's what happened to me, and I'm forever grateful." Thunderous applause erupted, echoing across the opulent ballroom. Emily felt relief and elation swirl in her chest. Over the applause, she spotted a few teary-eyed faces, people who seemed genuinely moved by her words. And in that moment, she realized that while one cruel customer had tried to tear her down, an act of kindness had built her up higher than she'd ever stood before. Later that night, as the guests gradually departed and the cleanup began, Emily stood on the ballroom's terrace, savoring a quiet moment under the starry sky. She gazed at the twinkling city lights, letting the crisp air fill her lungs. Her phone chimed a text from her mother, who had been following the event's live updates online. "So proud of you, baby. Keep shining. Happy almost birthday." Emily smiled, warmed by her mother's unwavering love. Tomorrow would be her birthday, the anniversary of that fateful evening. This time, no tears of humiliation would mar her special day, only tears of joy if she let them. She was no longer the timid waitress who felt powerless against cruelty. She had found not just a job, but a calling, a path to help others, just as she had been helped. She sensed footsteps behind her. Turning, she found Holt approaching, a relaxed smile gracing his features. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. "Of course," she said. They both leaned on the terrace railing, the city spread out below them. He exhaled as if relieved. Tonight was a huge success. Nearly $700,000 raised, countless pledges, all thanks to the team's hard work. "And yours," she shrugged bashfully. It was a group effort. He tilted his head, fixing her with a proud gaze. "Don't undersell yourself." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, looking at the bustling streets below. Finally, Holt spoke softly. "Emily, I wanted you to know something. That night at the diner, I was having a rough time. My board was pressuring me about certain investments, and I was feeling disillusioned about people. Then I saw how you handled yourself, how you tried to remain composed and do your job despite their cruelty. It reminded me of why I started investing in people in the first place. I saw resilience in you, and it reignited my own hope." She blinked, moved by his confession. "I had no idea." He offered a gentle smile. because you never know who's watching or how your actions might touch someone else. We all have the power to inspire Emily. Thank you for reminding me of that. Her eyes stung with emotion. Thank you for reminding me that second chances exist. They parted ways that night with a renewed sense of purpose, stepping back into the bustling ballroom to handle the final details of the gala. Outside the city, lights shimmered, and somewhere across town, Winslow's diner was still open for the late-night crowd. Another waitress perhaps dealing with the daily grind. Emily silently wished that waitress a kinder world, a moment of rescue if she ever needed it. And so, on the cusp of her next birthday, Emily Parker stood at the intersection of gratitude and ambition, vowing to pay forward the kindness she had received. She knew that humiliation could strike when you least expect it, but she also knew there were people who would stand up against it. And perhaps one day, she would be that person for someone else. Life, after all, had a way of coming full circle. Thank you for joining Emily on her roller coaster journey, one that started with heartbreak and humiliation, but ended with hope, opportunity, and a bright new chapter. Life can be unpredictable, and sometimes the harshest tests lead us to discover our inner strength and bring unexpected allies into our lives. Emily's experience reminds us that kindness can spring from the most unlikely places. If you ever feel overlooked or belittled, remember that a single act of compassion can transform a moment of despair into the spark that changes everything. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more tales of resilience, redemption, and the power of standing up for what's right, be sure to like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue bringing uplifting stories that remind us all to keep believing in second chances and the magic of generosity. Thank you for watching.